afternoon and welcome to our media and online analyst briefing that we're doing. We're actually coming to you live from Orlando. We have people that are virtually joining us as well. So for those of you in the room, welcome. But for those of you that are online and following remotely, we appreciate your attendance as well. So we really wanted to take a little bit of time and just share with you in a little bit more of an intimate setting what some of the key new things that are going on that if you were here last year might be new or different or new perspectives as well as just the fresh happenings. And a couple of the things that I'll talk about from an Itron perspective before I introduce a few of our guests that have another perspective. We also have John Sell from Alstom, who's a key partner to Itron, and we've got a lot of things that are going on right now, so we'll be talking about that, as well as I have an expert within Itron, Brian Fute, and he's going to be talking about analytics and what's really going on with our analytics platform. But before I hand off to them to get into more specifics, I just thought I'd hit some of the highlights from an Itron perspective. You might have seen, if you've seen tracking any of the Itron industry news, not that I expect you to, but we've released our going global with our Itron OpenWay platform. So as you know, OpenWay is our smart grid network that's been deployed. We have over 15 million meters deployed underneath our Itron OpenWay network here in North America. Customers that are in full implementation include CenterPoint, SCE, San Diego, Detroit Edison continues to roll out and they're picking up pace to complete their network deployment. BC Hydro's progressing very well. And then we've had some new opportunities. We're working with Duquesne on their rollout, as well as some other opportunities that I'm not sure I'm at liberty to discuss. So things have transitioned from us from a smart grid network point to well beyond the point of early phases of these technologies, and we're going deeper into, okay, now how do we work with you to take things to the next step? And certainly that's one of the key opportunities for Itron and Alstom in working together. Another piece of news that's quite interesting is that we're really seeing advancement in smart charging and the opportunity to sub-meter and take the expertise of understanding how much you're using and when and managing that, and working with EV charging systems such as Copper Creek, and we've got our smart charging demo and display with a Nissan electric vehicle in our Knowledge Center. And we also are spending a lot more time in the analytics space and building out that platform. And it's really a great opportunity for Itron when we're already harvesting all of the information with our fully deployed customers and helping them solve their challenges. I think that's going to be the best way to build out the portfolio of analytics, because it'd be hard to foresee and predict how people and what they're going to need. And I think working together with utilities to meet their needs is going to be a great way for us to build out the opportunity to do more with the systems that we have. Next week is European Utility Week. And we plan to be talking in large part with a lot of European customers about the OpenWay platform. So that is what the announcement was that I opened with, is we're going to be taking that and then modifying and being able to provide power line carrier as part of the OpenWay platform, because that's in large part a very popular communication choice in Europe. So taking the best parts of OpenWay, augmenting it so that it has, because the platform was designed to be flexible from communications, and leverage that in Europe. And we think that's going to be a great opportunity as Europe is going to start advancing and rolling out smart metering and catching up to what's been going on in North America. They've got a lot of opportunity to not be on the bleeding edge as some of the electric utilities were that deployed 5 and 8 years ago. So we're seeing a lot of momentum there, and I think that more than ever before, we're really turning into a global industry. Last year we had 13 international countries represented at this conference, and without marketing to international customers, we have 17 different countries represented from various utilities in addition to the US. So you're really seeing people in Asia wanting to know what's going on in North America. North America people are participating more heavily in what's going on in Europe. People in Europe are paying really close attention to what's going on in the US, and it's turning into one truly global market, where in the past things have been pretty compartmentalized. So that seems to be new and a shift, and it'll be interesting as we see the whole world learn to evolve and adopting technologies that are going, in large parts there's differences, but there's more similarities than there's differences. So with that, I'd like to ask you to talk a bit about our Itron Alstom partnership.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. My name is John Sell, and I'm with Alstom Grid, and I represent our Control Room Solutions products. Specifically, I'm the IDMS Product Marketing Manager. And we're actually interfacing our IDMS with the Itron OpenWay system, and we expect to see a lot of benefits from this. And I've started at a high level and explain what that is. I think most of the business justification for smart grid investments today center around a couple of areas. First and foremost is reliability. Customers demand better power today, better power reliability, and we can provide that with some of the solutions that I'll talk about. But also more efficiency from the grid. And there's some direct benefits integrating our IDMS product with the Itron OpenWay product that affect this business justification and bottom line. It makes both products perform better in both areas. I'll give you a couple examples of that to try to make it real and bring it home. In the area of reliability, of course, all of us are probably familiar with the desired interface, AMI systems, head-end systems, with outage management systems. And it brings a lot of benefit. A typical OMS gets data, information from SCADA systems, customer call-ins, and so forth. And that awareness of what's going on in the field, who's energized, who's not, is really augmented with AMI data coming in as well. Most customers will sit around in the dark for 10 or 15 minutes before they pick up the phone and call the utility and say, hey, guess what, my power's off. With AMI systems in place, we can potentially know within seconds. And depending on what the customer is doing at the time of the outage, we might know before they do. So letting the utilities know quicker where the outage is, the exact footprint of the outage, enables them to get truck rolls at the right time, to take proactive measures as quickly as possible to restore power. So that's a reliability benefit. On the other side of the fence, there is efficiency benefits. IDMS systems do more than outages. So one of the key business justifications and drivers for deploying distribution management systems is to let the grid operate as efficiently as possible. An example of that is volt power control, where by actually lowering the voltage slightly, 1% or 2%, we can reduce demand slightly, 1% or 2%, typically in rough numbers. To do that safely and efficiently and still meet customers' requirements for voltage limits, it's nice to know what the voltage is at the residence, for example. And using the AMI interface, we can actually interrogate meters of choice or bellwether meters to let us know that we don't overdo the lowering of the voltage. So those are two direct benefits that have a huge impact on the bottom line. And we're talking hundreds of megawatts of energy savings that can be increased by some percentage by getting the better visibility that's afforded by the AMI interface. And we're talking tens of minutes of reduced outage time by getting better information about the energization status of the system with the AMI interface. So that's what we're out to accomplish. We can actually demonstrate this capability to you down in the partner pavilion on the first floor. If you have time today or tomorrow, we welcome you to stop by and see it. We can actually show the interface in operation. You can see how we visualize what's happening in the meters and show you the effect of what the meters will mean to us as well, and demonstrate some of those capabilities. What's unique about the Alstom and the Itron integration is kind of special as well. Some of the new capabilities that Itron is providing with the IPv6 communications, especially the grid connected capability, actually does some filtering of the data. Practically, if you think about a meter, power's on, the switch operates, power's back off, power's on and off. If that comes directly to the IDMS system, it's just multiply that by thousands of meters that are chattering like that. We waste a lot of time talking to meters. And performance of the systems in the control room is important. One of the things IPv6 does, for example, is filters out those repeated calls. If a meter goes off, the IPv6 is smart enough to wait a few seconds to see if there's a power on that comes right on the heels of it. And if that happens, it doesn't bother sending the power off message onto the IDMS control center. Typically, utilities build some sort of interface between AMI and IDMS to handle that, just that incident. It's important to keep, I think, particularly for the traditional designed OMSs, to keep the bandwidth as high as possible in the control room by limiting the amount of data, and especially garbage data that comes into the control room. So the IPv6 helps us do that and provides us higher quality data to work with, particularly when we're dealing with IMSs. And we still have the ability to ping on demand meters to get statuses of the meter, to get voltage readings from the meter and so forth, to augment some of the other analytical functions that we do in the control room. So that's, to summarize, we're all about efficiency and reliability. Integrating smart grid products helps us achieve more than that, specifically when you consider the AMI OMS and AMI DMS integration. So thank you for your time. I guess we'll have questions later, right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, we'll have a Q&A portion at the end. Thank you, John. Just to reiterate some of your point, or build to your point, what really is unique is that instead of just integrating at a customer site, which is traditionally what's been done, okay, we'll give your system what you need, we're actually jointly planning and designing and being proactive. And while we're pretty excited about some joint utility work that we're not at liberty to talk about yet, we're really being more proactive in what's the right way to best blend these capabilities together and tearing down those silos to make most optimal solutions. And that's what we think we're doing that's more proactive and unique and different. So John, thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
Brian, talk to us about analytics.
Cool. Okay. Well, hi. My name is Brian Fute, and I'm Itron's Director of Product Management for Water Software Solutions and Systems, which includes analytics. So, analytics. Actually, a huge topic, right? It kind of goes from DC to daylight as to the types of capabilities that are rolling out there and being discussed in the marketplace. And so what I want to do here is I want to focus it a little bit down to what we mean when we talk about it. We specifically are talking about those types of analytics that are empowered by the collection of AMI data. Okay? You've gone to the trouble to put an AMI system in. You're collecting the streams of data. You're making your bills consistently, reliably, continuously. Sort of like job done. Great. Now what? Now what else do I get? Really is the question with analytics that can become a differentiator in the market space. And so we've seen an evolution of this data. There's about 4 data types that are coming in. There's the classic register read, the reading on the meter that you make the bill with. There's interval data, that granular time synchronized stuff that seems to be pouring in like a waterfall. There's event data, things that are happening out there, tampers, leaks, reverse flows, and soon to be, we're going to see the introduction of sensor data, specific sensors hooked up to the AMI communication highway that are telling you about maybe pressure or temperature or quality, in the case of gas or water quality. All this information is flooding in. And the evolution in data has been primarily in latency and granularity, right? You're getting a lot more of it, sometimes daily data, sometimes even hourly data, and we're even seeing sub-hourly data, okay? And you don't really have to wait around for it very long. In the old days of mobile, you had to wait till you would drive it before you had it. That's still true today with the Itron system. You can get this interval data through a mobile system or through a fixed network, but when you do it with a fixed network or a mesh network, you have it right away. So what? What's the so what with analytics? What's happening is, as this data gets more granular, okay, as it evolves to much, much higher levels of granularity from monthly to daily to hourly, it also evolves in what it represents, okay? When you have time-synchronized hourly interval data for thousands or potentially even millions of accounts all coming into a central database, that's no longer necessarily just billing data, okay? It actually, at that level of granularity, it becomes representative of 2 significant things. It becomes representative first of the buying behavior of our customers. When did they buy the commodity, electric, gas, or water, or heat? How much did they buy? Did they respond to any kind of a stimulus, a behavior modification program, pricing programs, redirection programs, conservation programs? It's all about the customer, not just bills. And 2, this data also becomes representative of your systems, the utilities system's response to that demand in near real time. You can find the bottlenecks. You can see where you're having overflows. You can see where you may have to right-size a transformer or increase a valve or reduce pressure somewhere, okay? So think about that for just a second. We've gone from billing in the billing department to who in the utility isn't concerned about either the customer or the system, right? This is huge. This is one of those, in marketing we call it the WIPM, right? The what's in it for me. The WIPM of analytics is that almost everybody has the potential to get value out of this information through some form of an analytic or analysis package. So what we're doing is we're spending a lot of time with customers and we're just listening. What are you struggling with? Where are the pain points? Where do you have trouble? Okay, and we get all kinds of stuff, believe me. They got a lot of problems. What we do then, the trick with the approach here is to identify which of these issues we can solve through some form of recrafting this AMI data, reshaping it, grouping it. This is the killer app of AMI interval data, is the ability to mold this information in a way that's relevant to how you do your job, or you. It's reshaping it and crafting it in a way that helps me be more efficient, okay? And the implications, what we're finding is, first of all, there's a lot of problems we can't help them with, right? HR issues, somebody else's problem. Fleet mileage, maintenance, really, leave that to Ford and GM. But when it comes to operational efficiency, when it comes to enhancing customer service, when it comes to revenue protection, revenue vigilance, or managing a conservation program or programs within the utility, or liberating this information and making it sort of democratizing it, if you will, and making it available to the end-use customer, these are the big wins. These are the areas that we can take AMI data and apply it across the enterprise for greater operational efficiency and benefit to the utility. So I'll just do a couple of examples. Customer service, we've talked about that before, but it's real now, all right? The approach will be to create a screen built around the use case of a customer service rep. What does he or she do? How do they struggle? What kind of questions do they get? It's a tough life, right? When you had the CIS, you had last month's bill and this month's bill. Somebody calls in to complain, yep, it's higher, pay your bill. Wow, we nailed that one. Wouldn't it be great if the customer service rep could zero in on the day that a high consumption event happened, okay? And go one step further. Zero in on the exact hours that this high consumption event happened. All right, excuse me, Mr. or Mrs. complaining customer, it appears that on May 27th between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. you had a maximum flow event. Were you aware that that happened? And we get all kinds of stuff. Oh yeah, right, that's the day that I filled my pool. That's the day my neighbor filled his pool. That's the day I backed into the hose bib, right, and forgot about it and left it running and fixed it later. Then what happens? You start to have a rational conversation with that customer. They begin to remember, yes, you have credibility, but in the end, when they hang up the phone, they pay the bill. Wow. So there's a very close connection between customer service and revenue protection. But we could go one more. I'll give you just another example here. How significant is it that a meter gets tampered with, right? You get a tamper alarm, it shows up in a report somewhere, somebody cut the wire or a gopher clawed through it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's interesting, something happened. How much more interesting is it that when that happened, consumption ceased, okay? How much more interesting is it that consumption ceases for an exact same period of time every third Thursday, then when it's restored, there's a reverse flow event on that water meter where somebody ran the odometer backwards, and then we've reconnected it. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, what we're doing now, instead of just barfing data into reports, we're using data smart. Okay, we're correlating events into a sequence or a pattern, and then when that pattern is recognized by the system, then it goes on a list. Okay, and the more times that pattern happens, the higher in the list it goes, and that account gets painted on a map. Right? We're giving the finance the revenue department the tools it needs to know where to go and look. And so it goes. Conservation, if you can measure it, you can improve it, right? We let customers set up conservation campaigns right in the analytics software. Give it a name, give it an owner, give it a goal, let it run, okay? Go back after 6 or 12 months and compare to the control group how much your campaign caused consumption to reduce, right? If it didn't reduce at all, it's not working, right? If it reduced it a lot, that's due to your campaign because other variables have been removed. And so it goes. There's district metering applications to look for transformer load balancing, gas leak or water leak or theft. There's data mining capability, text-based data mining capability. That's one of my favorites because there's always some clever caper in the utility somewhere that wants more data, right? So what do? Either they become a SQL expert themselves, right? Or they bother IT. I need this report, right? I need this report, right? You know. And so what happens? They get the report, and it creates 10 more questions. Okay, now I need 10 more report, right? So creating that easy access to the information is a huge breakthrough. And finally, like I said, opening up this information to users, to customers and users, for the purposes of self-service, whether it's on a mobile device. I mean, my nieces are 14 and 13 years old. If it's not on this, it doesn't exist in the world. Right? So the apps have to run in mobile, and then there's the old guys like me that still use web pages. So being able to communicate that information in a way that they can identify their own consumption and set goals. Set goals for themselves. Here's where I was this month. Okay, girls, no, not as many hot showers. We're going to try and reduce for next month. And even gamification. Okay, setting up virtual communities within the larger service area and letting them compete against each other. If you tell somebody go put a rock in your toilet, that it's good for the environment, they're like, yeah, whatever. Right? But somehow, when you activate that competition gene, and these people are putting bigger rocks in their toilets than we are, wow, we can't have that, let me get a boulder. Right? It's something in the human psyche that really causes that to become effective. Okay, just to wrap up then. Where's it all going? Well, I said this was just limited to AMI data, those 4 data types that I mentioned. Well, that's not the end of the rainbow. Okay, that's just the beginning. Think about it. There's tons of other data systems out in these utilities, right? They've got mapping systems, they've got work order management systems, they've got hydraulic load or otherwise system design systems. All of these systems have secrets. They all know things about the utility's customer, and the utility system. So the next layer, where this will evolve to next, is going to be pulling those systems together into very large metadatabases and creating yet larger images, yet larger pictures of what's going on. And then, just like we did before, build a module, build a use case around whatever the problem is you're trying to solve that needs those data pieces, build it, and then go solve those problems. That's going to be going on for quite a few years yet. Who loves analytics? No, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Just a couple closing comments before we go to the Q&A session, so start thinking about your questions, both online and here in the room. As you may be noticing, our conference theme this year is Be Resourceful. And at Itron, it means more than a conference theme. It's been the internal challenge to our organization. It's our challenge to think about how we can be more resourceful when we build products and solutions. You may think of Itron as a metering company, and I recognize that, but there's a transformation underway, and we're thinking about solving these problems. We're working to solve these problems, and this is really the direction, the challenge that we have as an organization, is to be more resourceful, to truly take this all the way through solving real world problems. With that, I was also going to close with a challenge that we're making to the rest of the industry, that we can do more, we can be more aggressive, working together, we can be more innovative, and we really mean that to be true. So we're also challenging our customers and the industry at large. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about being resourceful from Itron. So it's just the beginning. So with that, let's get back to brass tacks and ask some real good questions. Allison, I don't know if you want to start with the room or start with online.
Yeah, why don't we start with the room? Do we want them to speak into the mic
Yes,
so that
please.
individuals who are listening through the live stream can hear your questions?
Very good.
Yeah.
First question? No.
Hi, thanks. Is this
Feel free to introduce
okay.
yourself.
Okay, yeah, this
Yeah.
is Neil Strother from Navigate Research. Question for John, real quickly. You mentioned this partnership with Itron. Can you talk a little bit about how you will go to market with that? How that partnership will evolve? Will Itron be the introducer, or will you, or go together? Kind of, can you elaborate on that?
The answer is yes, I think both of those will happen. We've got, first of all, a little bit about how we operate. We have delivery teams throughout the world, 6 regions today, I think, that have project management, project and application engineers that actually go out and deploy this at the customer sites. And we also have sales teams in those areas. And whether it's in North America where we have a team, India where we have a team, Europe, Africa, and so forth, they work together with local Itron equivalents, if you will, both for sharing customer application data and project data. So we're working together right now actively. I can't mention companies yet. I hope to be able to soon, where we're actually actively, we have an IDMS installed, we have Itron components installed, and we're going to integrate those at the customer site to provide some of these benefits I specifically mentioned today. And so we're doing it from a bottom-up approach throughout the world as well as a top-down approach with the partnership that we have in place. So that helps, I hope.
Other questions?
Thank you. This is Brian Warshay with Bloomberg New Energy Finance. Not sure who maybe the best person is for this, but I'm curious as board looking for deployments of your products and kind of, I guess, looking a little bit more in the future. What types of, I guess, or maybe what single policy might you look for in a region that would really make the business case for the products that much better that's not really there yet, in terms of things like residential mandatory time of use pricing or something along those lines that would really make that business case that much more salient? Because it seems like cost benefit studies for a lot of these projects are done differently in different regions, and I guess I'm curious how that might be standardized and how policy, you see that kind of leveling the playing field, I guess, for that type of analysis.
That is a good question, and it's a broad question as well. I'll jump in with one piece of it that I see a lot, and I think you guys can probably backfill it with some others. But a good example is when you look at demand reduction. When you talk about conservation voltage reduction, which is an aspect of volt bar control, if a utility lowers the voltage and lowers demand, they're lowering their revenue. Now, what incentive is there for them to do that? There has to be some. So the regulatory agencies have to be in sync with the utilities or that's not going to happen, right? I'm not going to give up 2% of my revenue. I hate to say it this way, for the good of mankind. I need some business incentive to do that because I also have investors, I have customers who have to see reliable power and so forth. So regulatory policy has to keep up with technology, or we won't take advantage of some of these technologies that do improve, whether you're talking about the environment, the reliability, and so forth. So I think that's an important piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question that regions where there's more supply constraints has a direct correlation to more aggressive legislation that enforces it. However, there's a pro and a con, because what you can find is, well, a lot of times legislation, thou shalt do something, isn't as an effective way to institute real change, where there's real buy-in that filters all the way down. And truly, so much of the technologies that we're able to provide, when they truly are smarter, when we truly have taken it to that next level and can solve real problems, they have business case benefits. And I think the other challenge for Itron is, how can you keep driving down the costs, improving the innovation, using technology so that the business case even gets that much more. And I think when you start partnering, like such as what we're doing, you're increasing the value potentially, but you're also driving down the cost by having better integrations, by taking away some of the ambiguity, requiring as much planning work to figure out how all this stuff is going to work together. There's a lot of money in that. And when things work together more naturally, when problems have already been solved, when people like Brian have thought through, here's all the things that you're able to do, and the utility isn't left with, this thing to figure out what to do with, I think it drives down the cost, and I think the business case benefit gets out much more. So, while there's no question that, in Japan, after their disaster, the government says we're going to go to smart meter. Well, how do you argue that? How is not that the best way to drive quickly the adoption? That's not reality. So what Itron focuses on is making the most compelling technology, improving the innovation, and driving down the cost so that we can be business case beneficial in every region around the world, whether it's prepayment technologies in South Africa, or whether it's working together in locations such as India and on other challenges or problems. So I think that's more of our interest. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
Well, I'll just follow on very quickly on the conservation theme. I think that these applications that are evolving, like the analytics applications, regardless of the mandate, whether it's you have to improve your customer service satisfaction by this amount, which we've seen with some customers that have issues with that, or you have to reduce your consumption of this commodity by X amount, or whatever the mandate is that comes down, the software packages and the utilization of the data for measurement purposes sets the stage to demonstrate compliance with the mandate. Okay, so whether it's you have to reduce 10% year over year for your entire service area, we can measure that, right? Whether it's and oh, by the way, from a cost recovery perspective, the software can also do linear regression analysis, forecast what the consumption would have been without the conservation program, aggregate that across your service area, and then use that as real data for the utility to go back to the Public Utility Commission and say, here's my fixed costs that I'm no longer getting revenue for. Here's the data. Help me get that back, right? So there's a nice closed loop there that offers proof of compliance. Here's my program where the customer goes on the website, sets their own goals, okay? Check the box, and we're seeing reduction here. And by the way, here's how I cost recover for those mandated programs.
Did we answer that question?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Other questions here?
Hey, Zach Pollock with Green Tech Media. Question for you guys. Obviously, as there's more data coming back to the Network Operations Center, how much of this is going to be kept at the edge of the grid as you start pulling in more information, looking more at distributed processing and a little bit more autonomous operation at the edge?
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if I have a percent answer for you as to it'll be 29.2%, but I think the trend is clear.
Could have, it would have been you.
All right, between 29.7 and 29.9. No, this is definitely an area where the system is going, right? As RAM becomes more abundant and the ability to keep algorithms outside of some kind of centralized head-in starts to occur, this is a natural trend that's going to happen in all of the smart grids, electric, gas, and water, where we're going to continue to push processing decisions out into the meters themselves and the networks of meters. Okay, that's going to yield, in many cases, much faster response times, an offloading of the centralized head-in for much higher functions, such as the big data analysis. As to when and how that all happens, it's happening, that's for sure. I think it will just be a continuous evolution, probably starting now, if not earlier, and peaking probably in 5 to 7 years.
Tremendous amount of investment within Itron in our future.
Any other questions in the room?
A quick one.
Sure.
Hi, Brian, back to you again. You mentioned in your opening statement all the problems you're hearing from customers, and could you just quantify maybe the top 2 or 3 that bubble up, kind of the big priorities that you're looking at?
Sure. The things that we run into time and again are the simplest things, really, right? Automate my meter reading. Well, we do that one. We got that one. Okay. Improve my customer service and help me enhance the integrity of my system. That's really what it rolls into, right? So you get the first one when you buy an AMI system. You've automated if you hadn't already. The next two, the customer service piece, they're delicate topics and somewhat intangible, right? Especially the customer service piece. But if you lay the foundation to give the customer service rep the tools that they need to answer the call and get that customer to pay their bill, okay, and you have a methodology to measure the successes of those calls as they come in, right? Tracking them, keeping track, and laying that out as a statistic, you'll be able to quantify to the shareholders of the utility as well as the community that you've established, that you've met that goal. And then system integrity, as we've talked about, there's a variety of different approaches to different components within the network, but that's the kind of thing that proves itself, right? If you're able to conduct a district metering analysis and determine that and drive a 30% non-revenue water issue down to a 3% non-revenue water issue, you're being successful. If you're able to use cathodic protection to spot those areas that had higher corrosion rates on the gas lines than was permissible, you're proving the value of that. Those are the three areas where we see requests most often.
Would you say that non-revenue water seems to be today's killer app for water AMI in North America?
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely where most folks' heads are at in the water space.
Yeah.
Is, how do I find it, and then how do I solve it?
Yeah.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
Where do I prioritize? How do I know where it is and how bad? And then how do I go from there?
Yeah, it appears in gas.
Mhm.
It might be the safety, whether you're considering how can I leverage disconnect services on safety, or how can I just mine the data in the case that that has been an event. And so there's, when you're a gas utility, there's big money involved in anything safety related. So that seems to be a real killer application.
I'll throw in under that customer service title a request that we've seen in almost every one of the RFPs that are coming in the last year plus is some form of a customer web portal. There's a strong move and desire to, again, be able to liberate that information and make it available to the public. It's like I said, it's an expectation, of the younger generation. If it's not on a mobile device, it's just inconceivable that kind of information isn't available. So it's a very strong move, very strong push in that direction.
So are they coming to you for the web portals and the mobilization, or do they subcontract that out?
Yeah, the RFP comes to us, and either we provide that capability or we recommend a partner, and sometimes it's a combination of both.
Great.
Great.
Ready for questions online?
Yeah, one, Sherilyn, early in your remarks you mentioned embedded sensing. What role does that play in smart cities, and what is Itron's role?
Well, I think the concept of smart cities, I don't think anyone could stand up now and claim that everyone knows exactly what that means and that there's the perfect example. However, I do think that the idea of looking at interconnected devices that provide additional intelligence and mining that intelligence across silos is the key. So I think Itron is a provider of siloed information today. We're working to empower electric utilities, empower water utilities, but I think the smart city opportunity is potentially, to the question, sensing new information, but it's going to be about bridging those silos. And I don't think anyone has the crystal ball to know exactly what that looks like and how that's going to happen. But I think where Itron's role could be is just helping facilitate what does that future look like. What if we took down some of the silos across energy and water at a city level, and then what other new information, what else is missing? And I think that's where new sensing comes in. So I think it goes back to, in my view, I think that's where Itron could have a role.
I think we have time for one more question in the room.
No pressure.
When's lunch? That's a good one.
There you go. No worries. Question for John. I'm particularly interested, you mentioned these CBR application or volt bar, or whatever you want to call it before. Is that predominantly being established through the mesh, or when it's established with no other meters, are you pushing back some of that through cellular for control, or is it a combination of both?
Well, really there's various methods of accomplishing that, and I think some of it can be done by direct measurements only. Just measure the points at the end of the meter, lower the voltage, keep it within range and go as low as you can go. No analysis required, just read, go lower, until you got to stop. Other methods, the one we predominantly use is analytical based. We can achieve more if we take into consideration the connectivity, what's actually happening, demand, and so forth, and then we touch the meters occasionally to make sure we haven't overdone it. And that seems to be the primary approach. So generally we'll use the meters as interface points to let us know what's going on more accurately. And then we'll take control actions to try to optimize the power flow in the grid and reduce the amount of power being consumed using voltage control techniques. But it could be either one. It could all be done at the measurement end.
I mean, I guess where I was going with that is obviously there's concerns about on a mesh network, as you start to have more applications and more use cases on there, the bandwidth gets somewhat constrained. So it makes more sense once you have that going, that cellular would be a better option, right?
Certainly the communications bandwidth can have a big impact on whatever application that's running on top of it. But having said that, most volt-var control systems, I shouldn't say that, if you're using an analytical-based optimization, power flow-based volt-var control system, you can operate without bellwether meters. You probably want to be more conservative so you don't get below the ANSI limits of low voltage. But with that measurement, you can go as low as possible. So that's the real benefit of having integration. You get, is it 10% or 50% more voltage reduction by having accurate awareness of what your endpoint voltages are. So you can operate without it. So I would say that's a benefit of the optimization-based approach, is you minimize the amount of traffic required to get bellwether meter measurements, as opposed to a purely measurement-based approach where you'd be pinging a lot of meters constantly. So yeah, I think it would be a benefit. But it is methodology-based, and there are multiple methodologies being used for volt-var control, though I think all methodologies are augmented by AMI endpoint measurements, no question about it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions online, at this time I think we're wrapping up. I thank everyone for your time, both virtually and here in person. Let's get out there and go be resourceful. So thanks again. We appreciate it.